Hi guys, this is Tina. Welcome back to my channel. So we're here for another one of my weekly mass making workshops, and today we're going to make the little kind of pocket flip pieces. So super simple, super easy, and yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy making them. So all you're going to need is obviously some of your paper scraps as your, your blank pieces. And then I used just some coffee dyed, mine is 160 GSM sort of card / paper. Again, it doesn't have to be coffee dyed, it doesn't have to be, no rules, whatever kind of floats your boat really. But to use as your flip piece. So you're going to need that, you're going to need some scissors, you're going to need some glue, and then if you're going to decorate your pieces, you will need obviously, anything that you want to decorate, maybe your ink, your blending tool, yeah, anything that you want to decorate. So hope that you're going to stick around and grab your stash. Let's get crafting. So again, what I've got is, as usual, a bunch of different patterned papers and things like that from my paper pads. You can use obviously your digital prints. You can use book pages and things, whatever takes your fancy for the base of your item, and it will obviously, come clear once we start making them. And then what I've got is some thicker coffee dyed pieces for my fold out flippy pieces. Now these are 160 GSM paper, so it's kind of slightly thinner than card. I think these scrapbook papers tend to be like 200 GSM. So, and I think regular copy paper is about 80 GSM. So to give you an idea, it's nearer the thicker end of the scale, but it's not as rigid. Hope that makes sense. So I've just got a couple of sheets of that, well, 4 sheets, sorry, of that, which I will incorporate with my other, blank pieces. So I'm going to just move some pieces to the side, and we can get started. And as usual, what I'll do is just talk you through what I'm doing for the first couple, and then hopefully, I'll shut up about what we're doing and you will be able to just, get on and sort of know what you're doing without me waffling. So all I'm going to do is take my first piece and I'm going to just cut it down to a sort of size that I would like. Now, bearing in mind that most of the journals that I personally make are, from A4 sheets of paper. So if I just take in an A4 sheet, that's how it would be, the size of a page. So this piece was a 12 by 12 scrapbook page. And as you can see, if I were to just cut that in half, it would actually be too big for the page. So you have to just bear that in mind when you're making your pieces. So you want them, to comfortably fit on your page. So just cut them in so they're going to fit nicely onto your page. So I might as well do 2 here from this one piece. And I mean, as you know, I don't measure or anything, so, they're slightly varying in size, but hopefully they would both fit onto an A4 page. I mean, maybe it could do with coming down slightly more. But, they certainly don't need to be the same size like that. Now, all I'm going to do is take my coffee dyed piece and I'm just going to make like a little hinged piece that's going to fold up from here. So again, looking from here, I just want to be kind of as efficient as I can be with my paper really. I don't tend to necessarily have them the fold like the full size, if that makes sense. So say I wanted it, that length, to cover that length of it, and then I just want a small piece that's going to be my hinge there. So if I just mark roughly here, oops, roughly there, and again, I don't want it the entire width, so I just want it cut maybe about here. So I'm just going to cut that down. I hope that this is in frame, because I had this horrible thing a few weeks ago where I did the one hole binding and unbeknown to me, I was completely off screen, I think, for most of it. So I can only apologise for that. And yeah, I'm really sorry. So hopefully I have linked Emily's video in the description, and hopefully you would be able to check out hers and see the binding method. So I do apologise for that. It's very difficult sometimes because you need to get a close look for, you know, so you can see what you're doing, and then you don't realise that you've actually gone off screen. So that's my piece there, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to just fold that. So I'll just decide which way round I want it. It doesn't matter really, but obviously one side's got more of the coffee effect than the other. And I'm just going to fold that down here like that. So then all I will do is glue that at the edge like that. Okay. And that's it. And you've got your little hinged piece there. Okay. So that's all I'm going to do now, using just a bunch of different papers and things like that. So I'll talk you through a second one, and then I will be quieter. I won't promise to be quiet, but I'll be quieter, and we can obviously just, you know, have a chat and relax into the video. So I'm going to again just use that same sheet of the coffee dyed paper, cut it down roughly to the size that I want, cut it down here, and obviously, you know, if you haven't joined me for these before, what I will do is towards the end of the video I will just decorate one of these up for you guys, so that you can just see how they're going to look roughly on your journal, because I mean obviously they don't look any great shakes at the moment. They're just a little, you know, plain piece of coffee dyed paper on some patterned paper underneath. But once they're decorated up, they can look really attractive and really nice on your journals. So I will, you know, do that at the end. So hopefully, you know, you'll get some ideas then of how they're going to look. So I'll just glue that down now. I'm just going to move this stuff off of my lap for a minute and stand up to check that I'm in frame. So, because as I said, I don't want another situation where I haven't actually filmed, you know, the process for you. Okay, so that's that. Move that to one side. So that's all I'm going to be doing during this video, is making a bunch of those. And as you can see, you know, I've got tons of papers here. So, I mean, hopefully we'll get some really nice different looking pieces out of all these beautiful papers. So just move those to one side for a moment, because that's probably enough to get started with at the minute, without cluttering up my desk too much. So a good way to obviously, you know, get the right size, if you're using the full length of a 12 by 12 scrap, if you fold it in half, we know that obviously that's too wide really, you know, it's just is basically the width of the page. So therefore, if you fold it over and then just cut in a few millimeters away from the crease, you know, that's your crease piece, you know that you've got two pieces then roughly the right size. So I've got then some other scraps here, so I'm just going to do basically exactly the same. And you know, as I say, they do not have to be same sizes. So as you can see from this piece here, this is considerably smaller, but that's still fine. That's still going to be fine and, you know, usable. And same here. So all I'm actually doing, you know, because I don't like measuring, but the only thing that I am using is I'm using these as a bit of a guide to make sure that my pieces of paper aren't too wide for the A4 page. So that's kind of the only bit that I am vaguely sort of measuring or keeping the same really. Okay, and then we've got just a little small piece here, but again we can just, you know, cut that down like that. And then I've got this gorgeous blue, which this was from, I forget the name of the paper stack, but it was a Die Cuts with a View paper pack, which I absolutely loved. I mean, I love this colour blue, isn't it just so pretty? But it was much more, you know, lending itself to obviously scrapbooking than journaling, because lots of it was glittery, lots of it had the cakes on and what have you. So this is quite good now to be sort of breaking it down and using it in smaller pieces like that. So I've obviously cut that around before, so I just needed to cut that down slightly more. And then obviously I've got this piece, which again, that will just make one more bit out of there. Now personally, I probably won't use those ones with the cakes in a journal, but what we could do is, if we're careful, we could probably still get away with using the blue. Just trimming this down. Sometimes it's difficult, you know, when you've actually cut into a piece of paper and it's no longer square on any side. It's hard to make it any sort of shape, isn't it? So here, what I'm wondering is if we cut this in the right place, that we could still then use that, because we could kind of cover up, you know, the cakes, if you see what I mean. So if I just take in like this piece, just to see roughly where. So if we cut that here, like on that line, just going to cut that down. It's quite tall, like that. And then I'm just going to get rid of this piece to the side. Just pull my A4 sheet back in and see whether that's too wide. You see how that's now too wide, so I'm just going to trim that in slightly more. And I'm just going to trim it in on this edge as well, because obviously that's where it's been torn out from the pad, and it's just got a little bit of the pad sort of left on there. And actually this one could do with coming down in height, because it's quite a tall piece. There we go. So, although for me, you know, that's got those cupcakes, which I wouldn't probably use, we can do something to disguise that. We can cover that up with something. So, it's still worth using those kinds of paper scraps as well. So, I've got quite a few here to get me, you know, going and started. So, I'll just start making my flips for these. And, you know, hopefully you've kind of seen enough really, and I can be quiet now from constantly telling you what I'm doing. So here, obviously, I've got, she says as she carries on, I've got this skinny one. So that's just ideal for this slither that I had left on the edge. So I'll just cut that down. I'm just going to check that that would fit on an A4 page, because it seems quite long. Oh no, this is fine. Just obviously looked long because it was very narrow. So I'm just going to cut my piece down here because it's not very straight. Okay, right, there we go. So I will be quiet now, because I'm sure that, you know, I'm sure I've talked through what we're doing quite enough. So like that. So next week for the workshop, obviously I had put it out, what did people feel about doing some pieces with fabric? You know, not like from here on every week with fabric suddenly, but just doing the odd week using fabric. And touch wood, it was, you know, well received, and people seemed to, you know, imply that they would quite like to do some pieces with fabric. So I think next week we will do some fabric paper clips. So just a sort of heads up there for next week's workshop using fabrics. So, you know, maybe have a look around, see what fabrics you've got, whether you've got, just kind of using this like this so that I can try and keep a little bit for something else at a later date. So just cut that down there. yeah, so probably things like velvet and lace. I mean, any fabrics that you fancy, to be, you know, to be honest. And obviously some paper clips would be good. And we'll see, you know, what we can do with those, I think, for next week's mass making. So I thought I would give you a sort of heads up, really, because I don't want you kind of putting the video on and then thinking, oh, what? You know, she didn't tell us that we were using fabrics today. So, yeah, a bit of an advance warning there. And I will try and remember to mention it again at the end of this video. But as always, you know, memory like a sieve. So the chances are I'm going to forget to do that. So, yeah, not great at remembering things, but I will try and remember. But yeah, there's a high chance I'm going to forget. Okay. Glue that one down. Lovely day here today. Sunny and cold. Sunny and cold. Gorgeous. Oops, not got that very straight, have I? Oh well. I mean, we're not looking for perfection, are we? So just cut that edge down slightly and it will be hopefully a bit less obvious, or more obvious maybe I've made it. Okay, that will do. So I'm just going to keep this piece for, you know, making some other things we might be able to, you know, at some point. So, you know, heaven forbid that we would actually chuck anything out. Don't want to do that, do we? There we go. So again, just sort of in a bit. Now, talking of, you know, being perfect and things like that, I had a lovely comment from Sue. So, hello Sue. I'm sure you'll know who you are if you're watching this. So, and hopefully you are, because you asked me to do a pep talk about the need to be perfect in your projects, and the irony, you know, coming from me really, because well, multiple reasons for that really is, believe it or not, I'm actually I'm a qualified counsellor. I'm not a practicing counsellor. I qualified 2 or 3 years ago. I thoroughly enjoyed my training. I really enjoyed my course. It was, you know, really interesting. Obviously I had to see you know, clients and what have you to get my qualification, so I had to, you know, practice as a counsellor and gain over 100 hours counselling experience, you know, to get my qualification. And well, basically, you know, the intention was that I would actually then obviously practice as a counsellor. Sadly, it transpires really that getting paid work as a counsellor is actually very difficult, certainly in this country. And it makes you mad, because actually when you watch the news, they're always talking about the shortage of, you know, services for mental health and things like that. And I know that there's a long waiting list for, you know, to see a counsellor and things like that on the health service, and you know, things like that. But definitely as a qualified counsellor, it's a problem also, because obviously, well, it's a bit multifaceted really, is because as part of your training you obviously have to, you know, notch up these 100 hours you know, counselling experience. So there's that. which obviously means that lots of charities and, you know, organisations, their counsellors are actually student counsellors, you know, gaining their hours, which is obviously fantastic, you know, whilst you're doing the training. And, you know, finding a placement is actually really, really hard, because what happens is a lot of those places then keep the students as they progress through the course, you know. So what was initially a year 1 student or a year 2 student, because you don't obviously get a placement till you're year 2, and then you go into year 3 and they obviously keep you. So then why would they want to take on a year 2 student? Because actually they can have a more experienced year 3 student. And then what happens when you get qualified, often the counsellors aren't in a position to pick up paid work as a counsellor, so they continue on with the organisation, still not being paid, which again prevents obviously newly training, or new people who are training to become counsellors, prevents them from being able to access the placements, because obviously the qualified, you know, the newly qualified counsellors are still in their initial placements. So there's that aspect to it. Alongside that is obviously then the problem comes, because why would those organisations want to employ a counsellor and pay them when actually they can get all these trainees and newly qualified counsellors for free? So hence actually finding paid work, you know, as a counsellor is actually not particularly easy. And I mean, the placements themselves, certainly, I mean, my placement, it was for a charity, and I had to travel to people's homes, you know, to do the counselling sessions. And most of them were kind of a good 30 or 40 miles away. So it was costing me quite a bit in petrol, obviously. It was costing me a long time, you know, out of my day, a lot of time out of my day. Because obviously, although there might be 30 or 40 miles, I mean, one of the places that I had to go to was a notoriously bad place for traffic. So it would literally take me near on an hour to get there. Then obviously my counselling session would be generally 50 minutes. Well, not generally, but would be 50 minutes. And then obviously an hour to get home. Then when you get home, you obviously have to write your notes up and, you know, all the rest of it. And then you have what's called supervision, you know, for your counselling work. And obviously there you would talk about all of your clients and any issues. So it's not like, you know, your 1 hour of supervision is just for that client, or your 2 hours of supervision just for that client. But it all adds up. So to get that 1 hour of counselling experience, by the time you've travelled, written up your notes, seen the client, it might actually take you 4 hours to get 1 hour. So it's quite a protracted process, really. And yeah, so then obviously once you're qualified, just quickly before I go on with this protracted story now, I'm going to do a couple of flip ups. So this one here, I've just flipped my paper round and I've cut it across the top, and all I'm going to do is exactly the same method, but my flap is now at the top, so it's going to fold up rather than folding out, because I think, you know, that's quite nice as well. So I might do a couple like that. I can't remember now where I was, but anyway, so then when I qualified finally, you know, and I thought, oh, brilliant, you know, I might be able to get some paid work. Obviously, finding a position that then fitted in with, you know, school hours and what have you was, you know, not going to quite happen, which was a shame as well. So strangely enough, where I work, obviously I work for the university, and they have a counselling service. And I spoke with the lady from the counselling service there, and it all sounded really hopeful. And she said, oh, you know, we'd love to have you on our team of voluntary counsellors. And it would obviously be in the evening, so it's evening work. and you'd just do like one evening a week, and so that was all fine, you know. However, in order to do that, because I only have a diploma, I do not have, you know, the full degree, because obviously my time commitments at home with the kids and things like that, I couldn't really spare any more time. Not because the course was taking up such a lot of time, but because the counselling, getting those hours was really, you know, very time consuming. So I finished after sort of obtaining my diploma, which meant I was obviously a qualified counsellor. So, you know, at that point I was able to go and practice, you know, as a counsellor, but I just didn't have the degree. So because I didn't have the degree, what I would have to do in order to volunteer for the university counselling service, I would have to go and sit an exam for the BACP, which is the you know, the counselling body here in the UK. So I would have to go and sit an exam for them, which I think she said is like 3 hours. So not a tiny little thing, but 3 hours. Again, that wasn't anywhere near my home. It was, again, another kind of hour away. So I'd have to do that on a Saturday. It would cost me, I think it was £80 to do the, you know, the exam. Obviously, there's no guarantee you're going to pass the exam. And then you would have to sign up for their membership, which was another, I think it was £80 or possibly £120 per year to become a member of their association. So I obviously came home, discussed it with my family, you know, discussed it with the kids, said, what does everyone think, you know, to me doing this? Well, as you can imagine, you know, my husband and the boys, you know, obviously my daughter was too young to have kind of an opinion really, or to voice a educated opinion, I suppose. My husband and my boys were just flabbergasted that I would even be thinking about doing that. They just were like, Mum, you know, what is wrong with you? Why would you want to pay to join like the BACP and have to do an exam, you know, pay basically to go and give up your time for free to volunteer? You know, it would be like 3 hours out of my evenings every week, you know, and just kind of said to me, what other job would you go to university and, you know, you're paying obviously a lot of money to do your degree. I mean, in my place, obviously it was the diploma, but equally the fees per year are the same. It just meant I, you know, studied for 2 years instead of 4. What other job is there that you would study for all that time and then have to go and work in, you know, not only a voluntary placement, but actually you would then be paying for your placement, you know, which sort of helped then to put that into perspective for me. And yeah, I had to sadly decline the, you know, decline the suggestion of doing any voluntary work really. So it's such a shame because you know, you do hear on the news all the time about the lack of counselling services and all the rest of it, and yeah, unfortunately there's a lot of qualified counsellors out there who also can't get paid work, so you know, that's a shame. Anyway, I was just struggling to think where I actually had got started in that whole rambling conversation. But what had actually got me started on that was I had this lovely comment from a lovely lady called Sue, who asked if I could just have a bit of a chat about the need to be perfect in our crafts. So I think what led me to obviously be putting the connection together was there's a fantastic book. It's called TA Today, I can't remember now the authors of it. Again, memory like a sieve. But it's a fantastic book, and there is a section on it where we all have what they term drivers. So some people have like a please others driver. Some people have a be perfect driver. And that's how you basically, you know, how you operate within the world, is you are driven to please others, to, you know, strive to be perfect, and those kinds of things. And I think there's seven drivers. So, I mean, I'd have to obviously pick up the book and kind of refresh my memory really on the details, because obviously it's, you know, a couple or 3 years since I've picked up that book. But very, very interesting. And so Sue had asked, could I do a bit of a pep talk on the being perfect thing? So, you know, I guess really what I'm trying to say is, obviously you may have that, you know, be perfect driver, and you might just operate in your life that way. Now, how that kind of would obviously be manifesting in your crafts, because Sue said that, you know, sometimes that's then spoiling her enjoyment of crafting. And where I was actually heading with this, and I know that I've obviously gone right around the houses to get to this point, but basically the way I see it is, I mean, junk journals especially are the ideal craft really for anyone who's struggling with either being perfect or not being perfect. Actually, you know, it's kind of ideal for everybody, because there's no rules with the junk journals. You know, literally anything goes. I'm just going to use this again as my sort of template for the length of this piece. Anything goes at all. You know, you can have really grungy stuff. You can have, you know, really neat and perfect looking things. You can have anything that you like. Sagita's coffee stains, for instance. I mean, I'm sure you've all watched Sagita. Her work is incredible. I mean, it just looks so amazing. She is so talented. However, she's not measuring. She's not, you know, she's not worried about having straight lines or any of those kinds of things. But her finished result looks incredible. So, you know, for me, I think if, you know, I don't know, obviously, Sue, when you said that, whether, you know, whether you struggle with kind of, I mean, I think you did mention the cutting and things like that, which, you know, of course, my cutting is quite off quite a lot of the time. But if that's your style, then, you know, I think Sagita kind of shows that that's fine. You know, that can still look awesome. I mean, her work looks so incredibly interesting and so incredibly, you know, detailed and beautiful, and so much work's gone into it. But there's probably not a straight line in sight. You know, I mean, for me personally, there are a whole bunch of areas that I struggle with. You know, I'm not a measurer. I can't do things that have to be very precise, that have to be very neat and tidy, you know, that require any sort of precision really at all. That I just can't do that. You know, that's just not something that is within my realms really. And so I guess for me, I would say, and please, I'm not saying I'm an expert on this, no way. You know, and I mean, that's another thing with the whole counselling thing. You really sort of discover all of your weaknesses and all the rest of it. And, you know, it's okay to just go through life kind of learning as we go. You know, I just think no one's really ever going to know everything, are they? And, you know, it's just a whole journey from, you know, start to finish kind of thing. We're always learning. But for me, I just think, I know that there are certain things that I can't do, or wouldn't be able to do. I mean, crochet, for instance, I have tried that loads of times. I cannot crochet to save my life. Knitting, tried knitting. Can't do that to save my life. Of course I can stitch a, you know, I can stitch a stitch. Could I make a garment? No way. Because that requires me to be stitching at the same, what's the word? Not friction, you know, keeping my wool or my yarn at a certain tightness for the whole duration. I can't do that. So I don't do it. It's fine. You know, luckily, I mean, I'm not really driven to want to do knitting, but, you know, so I guess what I'm saying is, you know, so if you're worried about kind of, to you feel like things aren't perfect and it's actually taking, you know, coming to the point, it's taking your pleasure out of crafting, just go with what you can do and embrace those, you know, your style. You know, I'm a bit waffly there. I know that that was just the most protracted description, but for me, I just think literally go with, yeah, your style, you know, go with kind of how you need to create something in your own way, and it's going to be somebody's cup of tea. You know, it's not going to only be yours. I'm sure loads of people will love it, and it's all a personal thing. And just because somebody does something one way doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. You know, yeah, for me, definitely, I just think there's a ton of stuff that I just cannot do. And, you know, it's a shame, but hey, you know, you've got to just kind of go, well, I can't do those things, so I'm not going to put myself out there and try and do them. You know, some people are really phenomenal at the sewing and things like that. That's just not really ever going to be my thing. I'm just doing a bit of decorating here, so just going to layer this piece up. This is just a piece from my Secret Garden kit, so just glue that down. Yeah, I mean, I just feel a bit uncomfortable kind of touching on this subject really, because I'm no expert at all, you know, not in any way, shape or form. But I mean, if it helps to just say there's a ton of stuff that I can't do, and you know, in the crafting world, I mean, there's a ton of stuff I can't do in the world, but there's a ton of stuff I can't do in the crafting world, and I just steer clear of those things and just think, well, go with what you love, you know, go with what you're drawn to. I mean, I am drawn to lace and bling and what have you, and go with what seems to be in your capabilities, I suppose, or within your realms, you know, of what you A, enjoy, and B, what you feel is, you know, you're able to produce nice pieces. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the only thing that I can say on it. And as I say, I mean, I feel horribly uncomfortable kind of even talking about this kind of stuff, because I just think I'm not qualified to you know, give advice or anything like that to anybody. You know, it's, I mean, it's a shame if it's ruining your enjoyment of crafting, would be my kind of thing, is just to say, you know, try and just relax into it, and who cares if you can't you know, stitch as neat as somebody else, or, you know, cut as neat as somebody else or anything. You know, don't cut, just tear your pieces, or, you know, things like that. So I mean, for instance, I think it's Izzy B Crafts, she uses a ton of templates. I couldn't use a template to save my life, so I wouldn't use a template. You know, so just sort of find the bits that you can do, find the bits that are your natural style, where you're pulled, colours you like, styles you like, and just go for that. And, you know, just embrace, yeah, just embrace kind of what you feel is your thing, you know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether that's been helpful really, or whether it's just been complete waffling from my part. And yeah, maybe I'll regret having had this conversation at all and think, oh my gosh, how can I even upload this video now? It's just so boring. But I don't know, hopefully it might resonate with somebody. So, right, I'm going to just get my ink pad there. And I'm just going to ink my corners here. Again, just using my lovely scrolly stamp. So, I mean, like this. I mean, I use this stamp all the time. It's my favourite. I just love it. But of course, that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. So just find what you love and kind of just think, well, that's what I love. That's what I'm going to go with, and that's what I'm going to use. Right, got a little rose there. Just ink that up. I want to use this butterfly now. Do I pop the butterfly? I could have it on the hinge, which was how we did another piece during the 3 and 30. Excuse me, I'm beginning to lose my voice now, all that going on and on. So let's do that. And actually I have got another butterfly. Right, let's glue this one down. That also obviously reinforces the hinge, which is good. So we'll pop that down like that. It's kind of multi-use there because it's reinforced the hinge and obviously looks really pretty. And then opening this. So let's just ink up this butterfly now. I mean, these are just bits and bobs that are just laying around on my desk, really. So let's ink this one. Oh, I'm kind of cringing now, really, from that little chat. It just went into something that, oh, waffly, but. Yeah, I know that Sue had asked me to do that, and I mean, I just wanted to really, and it probably got lost in translation of my huge giant waffle, really, but I think what I was trying to say, and came out, very protracted and clumsily, but basically go with your style. Don't worry about kind of anyone else's stuff. Please don't let your be perfect driver kind of ruin your crafting, because beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and so just because you deem it as not good enough doesn't mean other people will view it as not good enough. And also I think we're very critical, aren't we, because we see the mistakes we've made, and other people would look at things and they probably wouldn't even notice, so there's that aspect as well. And just go with things that you love. So, if you've cut something a little bit crooked, cover it up, or, tear it instead, or something like that. So, yeah, hopefully I've managed to rein back the, what was initially the subject. I'm so embarrassed, really, just going on about that. But I just wanted to respond because obviously Sue had asked me if I could just touch on it, and also it just made me feel really sad that that Sue actually, to the point, it's actually ruining her enjoyment of crafting, that she was feeling really down about her crafting, because no one should be feeling that their crafting's kind of ruined because of their need to be perfect, really, especially junk journaling. I mean, I could understand obviously if you were, I don't know, painting murals or something in somebody's house. I mean, of course, then there would be a much greater need to be perfect. But if you're just junk journaling, then I just think, well, there's styles out there for everybody. I'm sure that your style is wonderful, and I'm sure that people would love it. So just go with, yeah, go with what you love. Pick the colours that you love, pick the themes that you love, pick papers that you love, all of those kinds of things, and then just roll with it, and, you know, be confident that it's going to be well received. I'm just rustling around, sorry, looking for another piece of lace. I thought I had some more of that same lace somewhere here, which I obviously have, but now I can't obviously see it. So come on. Oh, I might just have to. Oh, no, that's not right. I mean, again, organisation, not my thing. Not my thing at all. So I just don't really kind of go for organising things. You know, just, I know my limits. It's not really my area. So, you know, I just don't kind of go near it in the first place. There we go. But I mean, junk journals, they should be for everybody, because there's no rules and they're literally a case of anything goes. Right, well, that wasn't really the lace that I was looking for, but, you know, I don't want to keep you here all day while I rummage around looking for the lace. So I'm just going to go for that, and I'm sure it will look fine. There we go. Like that. Okay, so there's a little piece there for a journal, and obviously what you could do is you could add some string or something to hold that closed. I know that not everybody loves the string as much as I do, but I do really like it. So, I mean, again, so, you know, there you go. You know, different strokes for different folks. So I love the string, not everybody does, and that's fine. So I'll just do that up like that. Or, you know, you could use a paper clip to hold that closed. You know, you could use something as a little hinged piece, anything you like really. But let me just pull in a journal. Oops. Hold on. Okay. So just pull this in and just show you how that would look on a page. So that's your piece on the page. Obviously you could decorate this up further if you wanted. And then you would open it out, and that's your little flippy piece, which again, I would glue this down. Oh, I forgot I hadn't glued my string on. I would glue it down on 3 sides like that. So it would be a top loading pocket, and obviously you'd have your little flip out to the side. Okay, so I hope that, you know, you managed to get some done. I didn't count up how many we made actually today in amongst all that rambling on. I forgot to count up. So how many did we do? We've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, oops, 12, 13, 14, 15 today. So I think that might be a record. I think that's the most of anything that we've made. Or I have made. I think some of you have made it actually more than those things. But yeah, I think that's a record for me. So I hope that you like them, and I hope that you managed to get some made. And I hope you join me next time. I have remembered we're going to be doing fabric paper clips. So bring along your fabric scraps and also bring along your paper clips. Okay, thanks for joining me. Sorry again about the waffling, and I will see you again next time. Thank you. Bye.